welcome to Brands Hatch for the third encounter at the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. Now the competitors are taking on the short and twisty Indy circuit here at Brands Hatch, which is very difficult to overtake, especially when you've got 28 Mazdas on track. But it's James Blake Baldwin who tops the championship standings at the moment, ahead of Luke Herbert. But it's Luke Herbert who scored the only 2 wins so far this season. Can he continue his winning ways? Well, let's find out. Here's Andy McEwan with race 1.
Yes, thank you very much, Anthony. Well, he's going about it in just the right way so far this weekend, with pole position for race number 1. James Blake Baldwin, his big championship rival alongside, though. Aidan Hills and Jack Harding make up row 2, ahead of Johnny Greensmith and Colin Bysouth, then Steve Roberts and Simon Baldwin down on the 4th row, both though capable of finishing top 5. And then it's Gary Townsend and Jack Sycamore ahead of Sam Tatler and Alec Livesley. Will Stevenson and Christian White are next, with James Kell and Nick Boone on row number 8 of the grid. Row 9 for George Grant and Carl Garnett. Then Bradley Kent, younger brother of TCR racer Lewis, is on row 10 with Alex King. And it's Tom Parker and Alex Miller, Duncan Harris and Aldo Ritty, with Xavier Brook, Nick Rutter, Jeff Gurrier and Mark Swarbrick rounding out the 28-car field. So Herbert on the pole position arrives here at Brands Hatch, 3rd place in the points, just 6 points off the championship leader. James Blake Baldwin, though, who of course starts on the outside of row number 1 with him. The red lights go on, they go out now, and we are away and racing, and Herbert makes the best start from pole position. He will lead the pack down towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time of asking. Bit of pushing and shoving going on there in the midfield. They're 3 and 4 abreast, in fact, just outside the top 10. Simon Baldwin there with a lock-up, runs a bit wide, but it's Herbert from Blake Baldwin, the top 2. Jack Harding slots through into 3rd place, ahead of Aidan Hills, so he's gained a place off the line as well. On board with Colin Bysouth, trying to go around the outside in towards Druids. That's always fraught with danger, but he might have been able to get 4th place out of all of that. Let's have a look as they drop down the hill in towards Graham Hill Bend. They've turned their way through that very technical left-hander there, Steve Roberts and Simon Baldwin dicing away. But yes, 4th place there, look for Colin Bysouth. Aidan Hills is 5th and Johnny Greensmith 6th. So Colin Bysouth in the number 11 car having a really good start to this race, but he's left the door open there for Aidan Hills to get up the inside in towards Clearways. The momentum could be with Bysouth on the outside line, but Hills has the shorter route down towards Paddock Hill Bend. This will be side by side across the start-finish line for 4th position, and Aidan Hills, whose teammate Luke Herbert is leading the race, is going to go past Bysouth, and Johnny Greensmith will try and follow him too. But we already have hands out of the cockpit because we have a safety car being thrown now. Why is that? We have, well, presumably we do have a car off in a dangerous area at the end of the opening lap. We didn't spot any of the front runners coming to grief, but presumably there are cars a bit further back that have failed to make it round the first lap, so that's a shame. But it means that the order is put on hold just for the time being. On board again with Bysouth, who initially made a really good start to get his way up from 6th to 4th, gained 2 places. He's lost one of them. There's a car just to the right-hand side there in the barriers going down the hill, and I'm afraid that's Bradley Kent. So Bradley, who I was saying his younger brother Lewis is on fine form in the TCR UK series this year. Well, Bradley, unfortunately, another former Fiesta Junior racer, not having quite the same fortune here at Brands Hatch in the MX-5 SuperCup, so his race has come to a very early end. But we have the whole field, well, I say bunching together, they were already fairly closely bunched together before the safety car came out, given the fact we'd only completed 1 lap. But I think that Bradley is the only driver involved in that incident, the only driver who's failed to make it round to the end of the first lap. So enjoying lots of onboards here, front and back, from Colin Bysouth's number 11 machine, as he follows in behind Aidan Hills behind this safety car period. Now, Aidan arrives here this weekend having had 2 podium finishes. In fact, he's scored a podium at both of the first 2 meetings, one at Silverstone and one at Knockhill. Yet to take his first victory in the championship, though. And, well, he's in the mix. Any driver that runs inside the top half dozen or so regularly in these races has a chance to win races. But we all know how difficult it can be to actually achieve the top step of the podium. Luke Herbert, though, the man who's managed to do that twice already this season, as Anthony said pre-race, the only driver to have made it onto the top step of the podium twice this year. The wins have been fairly equally spread out there amongst his championship rivals. James Blake Baldwin has a race win from back at Silverstone, so too does Jack Harding. Johnny Greensmith, of course, won a race at Knockhill last time out. He won the 3rd race, the reverse grid race. And, well, he's not quite had the pace this weekend as Johnny that he might have expected. He qualified 5th, but already appears to have dropped down the order slightly since then. See Greensmith there in 6th place. So yeah, he's dropped 1 place to the rapid starting Colin Bysouth. So the field being bunched together now by the safety car, which I think is going to have to stay out one more lap. Yes, it is. I don't think they quite got Brad Kent's car moved out of the way in time, so the field will continue to circulate under the safety car. Of course, this still takes time out of the race. We run to 20-minute duration in Mazda MX-5 SuperCup racing, so the race will last 20 minutes, whether that's 20 minutes of green flag racing or 20 minutes of safety car running. It will last 20 minutes. They don't add time on if we have safety car interludes, so we're all hoping that they get this incident cleared up as soon as possible, but marshals have to do it all in the right way. It has to be quick, yes, but it has to be efficient and it has to be safe as well, and they'll be determined to get that car out of the way as quickly as possible because they want to see us go racing as much as anybody else does, but it has to be done in the safest possible way. Bradley, I can tell you, got out of the car absolutely fine. He's okay, but the car a little worse for wear, and that could be complicating slightly the recovery process. So out of Druids goes the field, back down the hill towards Graham Hill. You can really see from that camera angle just how cambered that corner is. From this camera angle we can see just how bunched up the field is because the lights have been extinguished on the safety car, so we're going racing this time, and Luke Herbert backs the field up, then steps on the loud pedal to try and build up some sort of a margin over the rest of the field behind. It's easier said than done though, with the car skating around. Very, very high ambient temperatures here this weekend, mid-20s. That means the track temperature is even higher, and so ironically that actually takes grip away. You'd think that the warmer the track was, the more grip there would be, but actually no, the drivers prefer a slightly cooler track, somewhere in the sort of mid to high teens is perfect for lots of grip and therefore quick lap times. No moves being made at the front through Paddock Hill Bend. Jack Sycamore had two wheels in the gravel further back, and that's Christian White in the background with all four wheels well and truly into the gravel trap. Hopefully he'll be able to dig his way out of there before we require another safety car. On board with South, dropping down towards Graham Hill Bend. Johnny Greensmith, that is, behind us, the white car with the two blue stripes. Behind him then are Steve Roberts and Simon Baldwin, but it's all still as you were as far as the order is at the front of the field. There is the Harding, Blake Baldwin and Aidan Hills squabble, and that is for second place. And already you can see that Luke Herbert, in typical Luke Herbert fashion, is able to just build up a small advantage over the cars behind, but it only has to be a small advantage because with the effect of the slipstream, once you do break out sort of a 3/4 of a second gap or so over the cars behind, they find it very difficult then to catch the toe and reel you back in. They tend to get sort of caught up dicing with each other. That certainly is what's happening at the moment, with Herbert pulling away. The rest of the field files through Paddock Hill Bend. There's Simon Baldwin, a glimpse of there further back, trying to find a way past Steve Roberts. No move made this time around there. Then it's Sam Tapper and Jack Sycamore. Then it's Gary Townsend next in line, isn't it? Yes, Gary, who qualified inside the top 10. And, he's looking really racy this weekend. Oh, car's off. Oh, and that's Christian White again. Christian White off for the second time in 2 laps at Paddock Hill Bend. Only this time he's done it properly. The number 28 car is well and truly beached, and I think that's Nick Rutter who has gone off with him. So 2 cars in the gravel at Paddock Hill Bend, and I fear that may be deemed to be a dangerous position. In fact, it almost certainly will be, and with 2 cars there it's going to be difficult to cover that with just a live snatch and yellow flag, so we could see the safety car come out again. For the time being we're still racing though towards Paddock Hill Bend, where James Blake Baldwin was trying to find a way past Jack Harding, only to see that the yellow flags had been thrown. So the blue and orange car stays in line, but then hand out of the window, and that means that the safety car is coming out again. So it's been a slightly scrappy start to this race, with 3 cars out of the race inside the first 5 laps, but you can see why we require the safety car this time around, because we have the Paddock Hill Bend gravel trap is a very popular place to go off, and so if you just leave those cars there, there's every chance that someone else might find their way into the kitty litter. We've already seen in this race 3 or 4 drivers running wide there, and if there's a couple of racing cars parked in the way, then that all of a sudden starts to get very dangerous and very expensive as well. So we need to get the cars out of the way so that we can then resume the race safely. But well, it is rather frustrating because it looked as though that fight for second was really starting to develop quite nicely between Harding, Blake Baldwin and Aidan Hills. Luke Herbert was pulling a decent gap over the rest of the field. Of course, that gap now gets eradicated. He had built up nearly a 1 second margin at the time of the safety car, but that unfortunately disappears. So 20 minutes, as I said, is the duration of the race. We would be anticipating somewhere in the region of 21 or 22 laps. if we went green flag all the way. But these safety cars are, of course, eating into the potential race distance. Not necessarily the worst news in the world if you're Luke Herbert, because yes, okay, the other cars chasing you down have been able to close right in, but they won't have as long now to do anything about it as they would have done. So we're already sort of ticking into the second half of this race, and we've only actually had about 3 laps of racing so far, which is a shame, but for Luke Herbert it means that at least he's not having to push quite as hard as he might have otherwise had to. That won't really be the way that he's thinking. He'll want to go out there and race, and he relishes the competition as much as anybody else does, but it's nonetheless important for him that he scores some good championship points. As I said, 6 points behind Blake Baldwin coming into this race, while you score 100 points for a race victory. So he'll start, but then it goes down in 2-point increments from then on, so he'll start taking some points out of the championship lead, but not all that many. Most significantly is potentially the battle between Jack Harding and James Blake Baldwin, because they are separated by only 4 points at the top of the table. So they, we can see there, Jack Harding in second place and Blake Baldwin in third. That's playing nicely into the hands of Jack Harding to take a couple of points away from James and potentially do something about taking the championship lead off him. I must add the condition there, though, that is before you start taking drop scores into the equation. Once you start counting drop scores, actually Luke Herbert is the championship leader, but at this early stage of the year, we probably won't take too much notice of drop scores. It's interesting though, I spoke to Luke Herbert before the race, and he was very keen to point out that on drop scores he's still leading the championship. Speaking to James Blake Baldwin, he's less keen to point that out, because of course he's leading on scratch points. So it's interesting to see the way that different drivers treat drop scores depending on how exactly that affects their championship standing. It looked as though Nick Rutter's car and Christian White's car had both been retrieved from the Paddock Hill Bend gravel trap, so hopefully we will be able to go racing fairly shortly. Indeed, the lights are out on the safety car again, so we'll go racing this time. And Luke Herbert has to do it all again now. He's going a lot later this time. Look, he's keeping the field bunched up a lot tighter for a lot longer than he did last time around. Hits the gas coming out of clearways, and I don't think that worked quite as well. It looks like Jack Harding's been able to stay with him a little better, so as they come across the start-finish line, the top 4 break away slightly. Herbert, Harding, Blake Baldwin and Aidan Hills, then Bysouth and Greensmith dicing over 5th, and then this fight for 6th between Steve Roberts, Simon Baldwin and Carl Garnett. In towards Paddock Hill Bend again, then it's Jack Sycamore in the orange car next in line. Drop down the hill, out over the curb, back up the other side again towards Druids, and Greensmith there having a little look at the inside of Colin Bysouth in front of him. Colin, who's really shown a big upturn in pace over the course of the winter. Then here is the real battle on track for the race lead and for the championship lead as well amongst these top 3 drivers. Interestingly, running in reverse order to how they run in the championship, but it's all so tight that every positional change on the track could have a real bearing on the championship situation as we go through the weekend and indeed through the rest of the season. I don't think anyone's really going to run away with it this year. Okay, Luke Herbert has continued his winning form from last year, but it didn't start that way at Silverstone. Remember, he didn't win a single race at Silverstone. Indeed, had a best finish of 2nd place in the 3rd race, but wasn't on the podium until then. So that proved that Luke can be beaten, and he was almost beaten into Paddock Hill Bend then by Jack Harding, who saw the door was open, but Luke was just carrying that nice wide line into the turn so as to be able to carry some speed through the corner. Up towards Druids again, and you can see there the gap an awful lot tighter than it's been really all race long. Onto the brakes now in towards Graham Hill Bend, but this is what Luke Herbert wants to see behind him. He wants to see James Blake Baldwin start to apply the pressure to Jack Harding, which is what's happening now. Jack having to defend as they go down the Cooper Straight, and that means that as they arrive at Surtees, you can see there Jack's on a tighter line. That means he's carrying less speed through the corner, which also means he's holding James Blake Baldwin up. The same goes for Clearways, and with those two running less than ideal racing lines and Luke Herbert able to run the perfect racing line, Luke is going quicker, so he's able to start pulling out that gap once more. Blake Baldwin pulls himself alongside Harding down towards Paddock Hill Bend, but that was the outside line. They've dropped Aidan Hills slightly. He's dropped into the clutches of the Bysouth, Greensmith, Roberts and Simon Baldwin train. Oh, but look at this for 2nd place. Very close indeed between Jack Harding and James Blake Baldwin, who almost got into the back of his big championship rival then, and this is really starting to stack them up now. Aidan Hills is suddenly right back with them, and look at the gap that Luke Herbert's been able to build. It's now well over a second between first and second place in this race, all because it's starting to kick off behind them. I actually spoke to Aidan Hills before this race and said, you know, at what point do you have to start working with other drivers so as to be able to beat Luke Herbert? And he said, well, Luke is my teammate, so I'm sort of in between a rock and a hard place there. Yes, he wants to go out and beat his teammate, but at the same time, if there's anyone he wants to work with, it would be the man running in the same stable as him. So it'll be interesting to see what Aidan does over the course of this race. For the time being, though, he's down in 4th place, so he's got some overtaking of his own to worry about first of all. There goes By South in 5th position. Cracking windscreen, but that won't be affecting him too much as they hit the brakes over that big hump in the road into Paddock Hill Bend, adding to the challenge of what's already one of the most spectacular corners in British motorsport. Side by side in front of us for second place again, and Blake Baldwin goes to the outside line, and Aidan Hills thinks, I'll have a bit of this, goes to the inside line. We're towards then come out of the corner in, still the same order, so still Harding from Blake Baldwin from Hills, but it's all starting to liven up quite a lot here in this battle for second position. Down the Cooper Straight in towards the left-hander at Surtees. Look at this, it's now 7-car train for second, with Harding fending them all off for the time being, but for how much longer can he do that? Because it looks like he's really having to start getting his elbows out, and if he really starts doing that, he's going to compromise his own speed too much and open the door anyway. So it's always a tricky position to be in. You want to defend, but if you just keep driving around the inside of the circuit, eventually someone's going to cotton on and drive around the outside of you. Into Paddock, they all fan out into different lines. Colin By South there has a look at the inside of Aidan Hills. Nothing doing there, but Aidan runs a bit wide on the exit of the corner. Actually, it's By South under pressure there from Johnny Greensmith, who's up the inside line. They trade a bit of paint, there's a bit of locking up, they both run out wide. Oh no, Steve Roberts will go up the inside of both of them. Thank you very much, says Steve Roberts. 2 places gained, and unfortunately Greensmith and By South, the big losers, particularly By South, who now falls all the way back to 8th position, right to the back of this leading train of cars now. So Johnny Greensmith went for the move, but I think Colin tried to close the door on him, only to realise that Johnny was already well and truly up the inside. Simon Baldwin now goes up the inside of Greensmith as well, so Greensmith is going from bad to worse. He's folded one of his wing mirrors in too, so if anybody drives down the left-hand side of him, he's going to have no idea that they're there. But it is going to be a big loss on that occasion for Greensmith and By South. Greensmith got past By South, but look at the cost. He's lost another 2 places as a result of that. Carl Garnett is also now starting to, Sam Tatlow, excuse me, is now starting to close in on 2 of them. And Sam, in the black, white and fluorescent yellow machine at the tail end of this group, will be loving seeing the battling going on in front of him, because it's allowing him to sniff a chance to gain a few extra positions in the final third of this race. Back out of Graham Hill Bend go Harding and Blake Baldwin, and Jack Harding for the time being weathering the storm, managing to keep the championship leader at bay. If anything, starting to close back in, these two on the race leader. So Luke Herbert hasn't quite got this all his own way. He has built up what was at one point over a 1.5 seconds lead. Now it is just starting to inch down as Harding and Blake Baldwin, I think, have finally got the message about working together. They pulled away from the cars behind once more, and they are starting to lap fractionally quicker than the race leader, but only fractionally quicker than the race leader. Back through Paddock, and Harding just building a bit of a gap now over Blake Baldwin. Then it's Hills 4th, and Steve Roberts really starting to gain ground here. He's in 5th and having a look at the inside there into the braking zone. I think Aidan Hills closed the door. Yes, he did, but he's going to have to defend for the rest of the race. So too is Jack Harding, because Chase Blake Baldwin is climbing all over and down towards Graham Hill Bend. Gets much better speed out of the corner. There's almost a bit of contact between the 2 of them as Harding moved over to cover, and all of a sudden they're not gaining time on the race leader anymore. They're losing time to him. They're losing time to the cars behind as well. But Harding still will not be unseated from this 2nd position. He's quite happy in 2nd place, thank you very much. And he's not going to just wave James Blake Baldwin through. Why would he? So it looked like James had made that move stick there coming out of Graham Hill Bend. Harding moved over to cover. They both got a bit sideways, particularly Blake Baldwin, and that lost him momentum down the Cooper Straight. There is Carl Garnett in behind Gary Townsend and Jack Sycamore, and the rest of the field streaming through further back, and James Kell there making his way through in the green number 33 car. Battling right the way down the order. That's George Grant behind him. Sycamore at the inside of Gary Townsend there in the forefront of the screen. Number 5 goes through as well. That's Alec Livesley. There is the Clapham North livery car of George Grant, one of the series sponsors. And a great character as well to have in the championship is George. True Surtees go our leading pack, and it's all very close indeed. Right the way down the order, you can see here that apart from Luke Herbert at the front of the field, everyone's got somebody to race with, whether it's for a podium position or a position outside the top 15. It doesn't matter, they'll still go for it. That's one of the joys of Mazda MX-5 racing, be it these Mark III SuperCup cars or the old Mark I machines. The racing is equally as intense and always has been. That's what made Mazda MX-5 racing such a fan favourite series in the UK. So leaders head up towards Druids, and we are now approaching the final stages of this race. Still Harding in second place ahead of James Blake Baldwin. It looks as though James maybe has given this all he's got, because he's dropped back a few lengths now from the 43 car in front of him. Along the Cooper straight though, and he's maybe just starting to close back in again. There's Luke Herbert though, still pushing on, you can see, in the lead of the race. Through Surtees, which is almost flat out in these cars, maybe just a lift off the throttle to get the nose into the corner. And the nose really getting into the corner there for the AK Automotive car of Jack Harding, as he slid and slides his way through the final turn, back onto the pit straight, loses a bit of speed as a result though, and so Blake Baldwin does close back in onto the, could be the final lap of the race actually, yes it is, final lap board is out, so Harding with Blake Baldwin up the inside again then into paddock. So clearly James was listening to me and wants to remind us all that actually he hasn't given up, and nor will he give up until he sees the checkered flag. The Blink Motorsport car will be on full attack right the way down to the end of the race, that's for sure. This is equally tight for fourth place. Aidan Hills has fended off Steve Roberts and Simon Baldwin all race long, but can he hold them off for another half a lap? Often it's the hardest half a lap to keep cars behind, because you've got all the pressure of the final lap. They're starting to get more and more frustrated behind you as well. You've built a bit of a margin over the two of them heading towards the end of the lap. If anything, Simon Baldwin is thinking about going up the inside of Steve Roberts. Does more than think about it. He goes up the inside of Steve Roberts. They'll lean on each other slightly coming out of the corner and run side by side down towards the checkered flag. About to take the checkered flag though is Luke Herbert. For the third time this year, Luke Herbert takes the victory in the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. Second place goes the way of Jack Harding, and third position for James Blake Baldwin after their race-long scrap. Aidan Hills in fourth, and Simon Baldwin did get that fifth place at the end. So there is confirmation of the result. 1.1 seconds in the end separated the top two, from Blake Baldwin in third, Aidan Hills fourth, and Simon Baldwin fifth. Then it's Steve Roberts, Johnny Greensmith down in seventh. He'll be disappointed with that. So too will Dysout in eighth, ahead of Sam Tatler and Carl Garnett. Then it's Gary Townsend, Jack Sycamore, Alec Livesley, Will Stevenson and James Kell, ahead of George Grant, Tom Parker, Nick Boone, Aldo Ritty and Xavier Brook. Alex King, Alex Miller, Duncan Harris and Marcus Swarbrick round out the finishers, whilst we lost Jeff Gurrier, Nick Rutter, Christian White and Bradley Kant never made it round the first lap.
Luke, well-deserved win. Leaves you third in the championship. It's getting tight at the top though.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 6 points between me, James, and Jack, and you've got people like Johnny Greensmith and Aidan Hills, you know, biting on our heels. So, I mean, yesterday was quite an easy win. Easy in the fact that I got away off the line quick, and Jack and James started battling, and then it was just a case of staying within the white lines, not getting track limit penalties, and bringing the car home. So, yeah, fantastic start to the weekend.
Yeah, and after this round, drop scores come into play, so it's vital to score as many points as you can.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to be the only driver to have more than one win. So, so when you take drops into account and get rid of those bad races I had at Silverstone, I'm actually leading the championship. But you don't really want to rely on drops until the last sort of 2 races, because yeah, you don't know what can happen throughout the rest of the season. You know, you could get a DNF. Unfortunately, with this championship where it's so close, and occasionally we have touches, you know, it might result in damage. So yeah, just need to keep getting those wins, seconds, thirds, fourths, and try and take the title again this year.
Well, good luck, but for now, go and enjoy the win. Well done.
Thank you very much. Cheers. James,
coming into this meeting, you're leading the championship. The third place still leaves you there or thereabouts, but what a race that was.
Yeah, that was a hard-fought race. Sadly, I made a mistake at the top of Druids, I believe, and let Jack through, completely my fault, and then just couldn't get past. But, you know, hopefully progress for race 2.
And it's a tough place to overtake here at Brands Hatch. What can you do in race 2 to get past the guys in front?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, it is a really, really difficult circuit to pass on. You know, that's why qualifying this year is so important. And all the drivers are really a bunch of talented boys. So, don't know. We'll try our best and see whether we can progress. Blink Motorsport have done an amazing job on the car and given me the tools to do the job. So, see if we can capitalise on that.
Absolutely. Well, you're smiling. Go and enjoy it for now. Well done.
Thank you.